Hey guys, Jeremy here. I'm a little bit sick, and as a customary tradition that I have oddly developed over the last few years, it's time for horror movies for some weird reason. Buckle down. And I finally just saw the ABCs of Death Part 2. Now, I watched the last one last year when I was sick, and I thought it was so stupid. For every good story, there was about 4 bad ones, and I mainly remember the bad ones. Especially that weird Japanese one with the girls farting and whatnot. What the fuck was that? That was stupid. So admittedly, I was a bit hesitant to see the second one because I just assumed that there would be a lot of stupid shit again. And while there was some stupid stories, the budget and the quality and the overall feeling of the film was a lot better than the first one. It's kind of the same thing with VHS. VHS 1 was cool, but it wasn't perfect. It wasn't really that great. It had some cool ideas, but it wasn't well executed. And then when VHS 2 came out, it was damn freaking good. Every story was good. It's the same thing here, except there are still a few flaws, but admittedly, ABCs of Death Part 2 is far better than the original. The whole premise of ABCs of Death is that there's 26 different films representing each letter of the alphabet, and it's a different crew, a different director and everything, and they have to take a word from that letter and somehow represent its death. Sometimes it's very direct to death, sometimes it's kind of inadvertent, sometimes it's comedic, sometimes it's terrible, sometimes it's horrifying, sometimes it's actually thought-provoking. And that was the thing that I liked, is there was a lot more thought-provoking stories. For instance, the film that represented E was called Equilibrium, and it was about 2 guys who had crash-landed on an island who were living together in a pretty good way, and then they found a woman. They all lived harmoniously until one of the women started to show affection for one of the guys, and then the other guy got very jealous, and you could see it all start to fall apart. And it was actually done almost in one panning shot, so it was really well choreographed. In the end, they come to throwing blows, and then in the last moments, they look at the woman, and they decide to kill the woman instead because she's the one who's destroying everything, and then it goes all back to normal. There was another one called Oculus, or represents mob rule, and it was a Japanese story. And now I admit, right when I saw it, I was like, oh no, I just kept on thinking of the fart story from the last one. But this one was actually probably one of the best ones, because it was about the idea of what would happen if zombies became reanimated in a way that they regained human functions, and then they would put the people who killed zombies on trial for killing zombies. And while they killed some people during the rising when the zombies weren't cognitive of what they were doing, it's the mob rule, so you kill one, you've pretty much killed all of them. So it was really cool. That was probably one of my favorite stories in the entire film. But as I said, there are some bad ones in this. There are some that just rely way too heavily off of gore. There are 2 animated ones in particular that were just really weird. At first I kind of was in one, but then when the second one came on, I didn't even bother. I was just like, I tuned out because it was just so stupid. And there are some stories that aren't that great, but the one thing I will give it definitely has a story at the end that will make you go, in comparison to the first film, the film that represents Z, or Z for you Americans, is probably one of the best ones because it's one of the most disturbing. That story freaked the shit out of me. That one was really good. So ABCs of Death Part 2, is it better than the first one? Yes, considerably. Should it still exist? Should they make another one? I don't know. I don't think so, or at least not in this direction anymore. They've near perfected the idea of getting a bunch of really good stories with good quality production and very thought-provoking ideas for most of the letters. But if they did another one, it would just be another social experiment. What I would like them to do is try and find a way to have all 26 letters connect with each other. Now that would be difficult as hell, but I think that it could be done. Film the films in different ways, according to the directors, that's fine. That's been done with different films. But to have all 26 short stories actually match with each other, the film doesn't have to be linear, it could be non-linear, just as long as it works. That would be something I would be interested in. So in the end, since it isn't a full movie, it is a collection of stories, I'm not going to give it as high of a rating as I would like, just because this is something you could do through the internet in a free means. You wouldn't have to do this in a movie kind of format. It's something that's been done on the internet before, and I would have preferred that they released it on that. And the fact that there isn't really a connection between the two, it is a social experiment, so I have to keep it at that. So in the end, my rating for the ABCs of Death Part 2 is a 4 out of 7. It's decent, there's some good parts into it, there's some parts that will scare you, there's some parts that will gross you out, and there's some parts that will make you think, which is very rare of horror movies nowadays. Anyway, guys, I hope you were enjoying your St. Patty's Day tea or whatever else you've gotten here. And I'll see you guys next time.